It's pretty messy in there right now. Just transferred a whole container over from another. So, let me show you. This is the rig right here that I'm working on. Got the monitor plugged in just so I can see which GPU is giving me issues. And it's running up right here. You can see quite a bit going on in here. Got a big old three-phase fan blowing air. A lot going on. Right now I'm using a mining operating system called Hive. Working on transferring to another I'll tell you about later. You can see you gotta look really closely at these error messages as they go to know what issues might be coming up. So 7 GPUs loaded up right away. There's a problem with that. We have 8 GPUs here. So let's see if we can figure out which one's gone down. So I got a machine set up right here. Check out. All right, 4E13. So it's got a history of hanging on GPU 6. So I'm going to want to check out GPU 6. And the way these motherboards in particular, the way they boot, is they call this GPU 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, typically it's zero-based indexing, so typically it starts at 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's probably the GPU in this position right here that's giving me trouble. So it's mining on all the GPUs, at least for a while. We can check our settings. But uh-oh, here's a bunch of error messages. It's showing GPU 8. So it's either the last position GPU that wasn't working in the first place, or it's GPU number 7. A lot of times the number doesn't correlate exactly to which GPU's position, so it takes a little testing around. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to shut her off, kill the power. I'm going to take a look at that GPU. I believe it's the last GPU here. We're going to unplug it. A lot of times that fixes it, or that'll at least narrow down which GPU you're having a problem with, and then you can go from there. So it's booted back up. I'll turn it back on when we get there. All right. We're booted up again. So we'll see if it runs a little smoother. If you'll notice, it's showing the exact same number of GPUs despite me unplugging one. So it just goes to show you, even a GPU that's having issues that isn't showing up in the software, if it's physically there, it can cause issues with your mining rig. So if you've dropped a GPU, be sure to check it, because it can bring your whole rig down. All right. Come on, buddy. What you doing there? Gotta join all your brothers and sisters. So it says GPU 6 is hanging. So that could be because the clock speed's too high on it. And this is a similar message we were getting earlier. If you look over, the node actually just rebooted. So we're probably having an issue as well as the one we unplugged, that GPU in the final 6th position. Although it's the 7th GPU because, you know, zero base indexing. See, it's rebooted. We're gonna go ahead and shut it off. And this is kind of the tedious part of troubleshooting these miners, is you may have to just go one by one and unplug GPUs until you find the one that's giving you issues. Sometimes a bad GPU in one position can cause GPUs further down the line to have issues that would work otherwise. So we'll take a look. This is just one rig, by the way. There's a couple hundred that I have. So you sort of get the idea of how tedious it can be to keep everything up and running all the time. A lot of times when it's booting, these are sort of your initial pre-checks. So you want to pay attention to this because sometimes you can pick up a problem with the GPU right here. Usually if it makes it to this point, you're good. Not always, but... So we're loading up the operating system. Alright, so as you can see, everything seems to be running smooth now once we unplug that bad GPU. Now, normally, I would estimate, you know, my first response to having a GPU hung is I would lower the clock speeds on it, but these speeds are really low as is. We're talking 1700 memory clocks, 1100 core clocks. So we now know that the issue is with that GPU. Now, one thing we have to look at is these voltages. These are pretty low. These are on the low end. These can cause, I mean, because you want them low so they consume so little power. Like 56 watts a GPU, that's really nice and low. But it's so low that it might be causing that GPU to hang. So we're going to plug that GPU in, and we're going to make sure that it isn't just this low voltage that's causing that. You really want to make sure those plugs are tight. If they're even a little loose, that ain't going to work. We'll turn it back on and wait a few more minutes so we can see if that, oh yeah, we change our voltage settings. 800, like I said, is on the low end. It's working for all our others, so we're going to leave it alone there. But on that 6th position, we're going to bump it up a little. Woo! On the 7, I should say. 850 just about works on everything. So, and 1700, the very low memory clock. I'm going to bump these up later, but they should all work there regardless. This AMD MEM tweak, that can also cause issues sometime. I'm going to shut that off for now. Basically, whenever you're troubleshooting a rig, you want to use extremely usable, extremely like low clock rates, very comfortable overclock settings that any card that is working in any capacity can handle, just to establish whether or not the GPU works at all. Because sometimes it can be hard to differentiate if you're just pushing a card too hard, or if it's completely dead and it's time to take it out of service, send it back for a warranty, replace it with another card, whatever. So just something to be aware of. Alright, got the rig back up and running. And this is why it's a really good idea to double check your settings and make sure, you know, all these cards, they're the exact same model, they're the exact same everything, same memory size. I mean, if you look through them, yeah, some are Hynix memory, some are Elpida, but even so, there's differences among the same make and model of card that will cause some to work at one voltage and others not to. So just because you have 8 identical cards and you have one card and they're all working on the same settings, and one card isn't, that doesn't mean the card's bad. It just means that card has a different, it won the silicone lottery, so to speak, or it didn't win. And you just got to play with the settings, give it a little more power, and here it is working, no issues. Looks like that 8th GPU is still down on that rig, so that one may need to be replaced. You don't junk anything. Obviously, you're going to independently test one GPU on a known working rig by itself before you make any final determinations. But yeah, let's go ahead and get an 8th GPU working in this thing.